Welcome to episode 349 of the show. This is another episode where I am out and about, so expect to hear some interruptions, people walking by, cars driving by, horns blaring, that sort of thing. I'm your host, the Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional, Tavishima George Ayede. So thank you very much for signing up today for the show. The question that we're going to be looking at is how to develop business relationships. That's something that is on the back of our mind for loads of us because we end up doing business with our potential clients and then some of us think, now what? What's next? There are some people who believe, like my good friend Shegun that I talk about regularly on the podcast, who believe that, once you get the money, it's over and it's done, so on to the next one. Now, I'm assuming that if you've been listening to the podcast for the over 340 something episodes that we've done so far, you're not one who believes that once we collect the check, then we move on for the next kill, in quote, and that it's good to spend some time building a relationship because we're going to get some viable income after that. Of course, because if we keep in touch with people that we've done business with in the past, then there's opportunities for repeat business, for resales, referrals. Some of you might argue that that's not possible in the wedding and the event space. That's an argument that I've tackled before, so I'm not going to use this as an episode to relitigate that. But in a general sense, yes, it is good to keep in touch with people that we have done business with before, and we should build relationships. But however, building business relationships is not just about keeping people in the loop that we've done business with in the past, but it's also with people that we hope to do business with in the future, especially since a couple of us who are listening to this podcast now are involved in the sale of some products or services that require a long-term cycle. For instance, those of you who've been listening for a while remember the talk that I gave to Kairos Real Estate over here in Abuja, the training sessions that we did with them through Etiquette with Eti. And real estate is one of those businesses that has a long-term cycle. So nobody's going to walk into your real estate office today on a Monday and then buy a house on Friday or Saturday. Or whether you run into them over on Instagram. And it's also the same in the wedding and the event space. I mean, typically, the bride that you get in touch with in January, it's not always the case that you get in touch with her January 1st and then you end up doing her wedding on January 10th or January 14th. So relationship building is something that we have to pay attention to, whether we have people on the back end that we've done business with before or people on the long end that we hope to do business with in the future. So today's episode is to look at ways through which we can foster relationships. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, I'm sure you know that for me, I think face-to-face is the best way to build business relationships because that is the avenue that we can get the fullest extent of human communication. So you're there in person, people can look you in the eye, they can judge your body language, you can get a lot of nuance and things of that nature. And so it's an effective way to build relationships. And then plus, given the cultural context that we're in the old world, when I say the old world, in this case, I mean Nigeria, Africa, I mean in these parts of the world, it goes a long way when you actually show up to somebody's office and, you guys sit down and have a chit chat, have a powwow, even if you're talking about Nigeria's failed attempt at the match with Ghana yesterday, or whether it's the fuel crisis or whatever, but things like that go a long way in building relationships. So yes, face-to-face is up there on the summit and is ideal. But however, it's not going to be realistic to go to everybody's home or everybody's office or have everybody come over to yours just because you want to build relationships. If that were the case, you're going to spend a lot of time in traffic, spend a lot of time on fuel, and spend a lot of time buying gifts. So luckily for us, the modern business-scape has lots of alternatives out there. Of course, the phone has been with us for... Gosh, I don't know. Let me guess that the phone has been with us for 100 years. I'm not sure... I don't know much about the history of the phone, but let's just assume that the phone has been with us for at least 50 years. Let's just put it that way, 50 years. But note to self, I have to go and check later on how long we have had phones. So the phone has been with us for a while, and then we have newer technologies, social media, all of them internet-based, and these are things that we can use as well. And I've spoken about this in previous episodes about how you can use these digital avenues for fostering relationships. But before I go into the usual suspects, which are Facebook, Instagram, and what have you, LinkedIn. Okay, well, at least those are the ones that we know available to us over here in Nigeria. I hear that for people in the, I think like in Southern America and in, what's it called, and in China, there are other alternatives to Facebook and Instagram and the typical social media that we're exposed to. Over here, so there are other alternatives, but since I don't live in those countries, I don't know what those alternatives are, even though I've heard about some of them from time to time. Anyway, so before we go into looking at the usual suspects, a note of warning here. Email is also digital, but that doesn't mean that email is a good avenue for building business relationships or personal relationships. And that's because email is asynchronous. And so that means that you send the message now and people don't expect a response now. And if you try to carry on an email conversation, you'll get exactly what I mean, where you send the email on Monday, but the person doesn't see it or respond until Wednesday, and you don't see it, and then you respond on Saturday. And basically, things that could have been done in a 3-minute conversation end up taking maybe 10 days over email. So that's what I mean by it's asynchronous. It doesn't happen smoothly over time. And I think one of the reasons why that is so, because some people will say, what's the big deal? I mean, the email app is an app on your phone, just like the Instagram app. So if you're going to open up Instagram, why not just open up your email? But the thing is, email has this psychological association of being an official thing or a formal thing, and that's what makes it especially more asynchronous than other avenues that we have for building relationships online. And so, because of that, because of these associations, email is not going to be a very good tool for building business relationships. Okay, I'm going to have to run now because my wife is back here. We have some paroles lined up for the day. And so with that, I'll end today's recording and then we'll pick it off from email tomorrow.